well. And that's another great reason to see them honored here. I also want to extend my condolences and condolences of all of you here, I'm sure, to those killed and injured in the barbaric bombing at the Supreme Court the other day, to their families and to the Afghan people who have suffered so much from such atrocities. I want to commend Hamdullah and Lael for taking on the challenges of helping to build their country, as many young Afghans are doing in Afghanistan and here in the United States. You'll see in their bios that they have both accomplished a lot in their careers, even before they came here, and demonstrated the kind of commitment that will be necessary to rebuild Afghanistan and build the future Afghanistan. They exemplify the best that Afghanistan has to offer and represent Afghanistan in the future. It's hard for Americans, given our news cycle, to see the complicated reality of Afghanistan, a country that, yes, has been torn by decades of conflict and struggle, and with a very difficult history. But Afghanistan is not a failed state. It's a country where people are resilient and striving and struggling for a better future. And it's an Islamic country which wants to be a partner with the United States and with the international community in building a better future in that part of the world. And I urge you, if you haven't done so recently, to take a look at the Afghan Embassy website to get an idea of the variety of things that are happening, not just in this country, but in Afghanistan's international interactions. Ambassador Mohib has made that message a centerpiece of his mission here, reaching out to people all over the country, developing new communication strategies, and raising the Afghan voice. He and Lael have made an important point of reaching out also to our military, our veterans, and the families of the fallen, and acknowledging their sacrifice and expressing the gratitude of the Afghan people for their service. Acknowledging the crucial role that the United States and our servicemen have played in creating the time and space that Afghanistan needs to grow and develop and secure itself and build a more stable and prosperous future, the future most Afghans deserve and are fighting for. It's fitting that Aschiana honors them tonight. Leslie and I are honored ourselves to have them as friends, and we wish them every continued success. Thank you.
I'll go first. We'll save the best for last. Thank you, Ambassador Cunningham and Leslie. It's also an honor to count you as our friends. So thank you for that kind introduction. Ambassador Sase and Nabucco, it's also an honor to count you as our friends. Thank you so much for hosting us this evening. And to Aschiana, thank you so much for honoring us and for all that you do. I also want to thank our diplomats. Can our diplomats stand up? I think some of them are here from the Afghan Embassy. I'm often asked how it feels to represent Afghanistan in my home country, and I have to say sincerely it's a tremendous honor. It's a very humbling experience, and I'm so honored to be representing the Afghan people here and doing all that we can during our privileged time at the embassy for the Afghan people. I also want to say that we have, it feels like the year and a half has gone very quickly, but the one aspect of our work that I have enjoyed the most and has been the most profound and most rewarding is working with military members and veterans and Gold Star family members, getting to know those people on a people-to-people level really exemplifies the important work that, for me, that our two countries are doing. I want to close with a brief story. I was reminded, that reminded me of Aschiana. I had the privilege last week of touring the Capitol building. And in the Vice President's office is the bust, sculpture, of one of the United States Vice Presidents, Henry Wilson. And the Senate historian told us this incredible story about him. He was the Vice President from 1873 to 75, but he was born into poverty. He never went to school. He taught himself how to read and write entirely through his own means. When he was 10 years old, he was sold by his father into servitude to a family, a landowning family. And he became a cobbler, and on a random trip through Washington, D.C., he was struck by the slave trade and the injustice of the slave trade that he saw, and dedicated his life to becoming an abolitionist and an advocate for workers' rights. And I thought, that's an incredible story, and I wonder which one of these children on the street in Kabul that are disadvantaged but are being helped by great organizations like Aschiana might be our vice president one day, or our president. So it's so important to support all the children, especially those who are disadvantaged. And I'll stop talking now, but the last person I want to thank is my husband. I'm terribly biased, of course, but he's been such an inspiration to me personally, and I just want to thank him for his leadership, and I'll hand it over now.
Ambassador Sase is jealous that you don't hear that from a wife quite often. Ambassador, thank you so much for hosting us, and to the Aschiana Foundation for hosting and for honoring us tonight. I would also like to welcome and thank you to my friends here, Ambassador Ross, Ambassador Cunningham, Michael Walsh, and all of the board members of the Aschiana Foundation. I know there is a lot of you. If I start naming, we will be here all night. But I am grateful for this opportunity, because I have a lot in common with what Aschiana Foundation. Maybe I didn't grow up on a street, but I was a refugee as a child, and then I soon found myself as a teenager in a strange country on my own with nothing. And if it wasn't for a few strangers who showed me the way, who shepherded me in the direction that led me to where I am today, in the direction of education and the pursuit of success. And those strangers probably wouldn't even know what they did in making this happen. As Lael suggested, that we don't know which one of these children that you are helping today will end up leading our country into success. You see, Afghanistan has gone through multiple revolutions in the past 4 decades. It started before I was born, before 75% of our country was born. We went from monarchy to communism to anarchy to extremism, and then now democracy. All of that happened in a short span of 40 years. But as Ambassador Sase pointed to, was the glow and the commitment in the Afghan people's eyes, and to building that country. And we're thankful to the opportunity and the partnership of the international community, including the United States, which I'm honored to be representing here Afghanistan's interest, but also to the international community in Japan, Norway, and all of our partners who gave us not just an opportunity to be able to build our country back, but most importantly gave us a voice for a reasonable population. Instead of bandits, warlords, cruel neighbors speaking for us, today the Afghans speak for themselves. We define who we are, and there is no one in the way that can stop us. The country has come a long way. Again, referring to Ambassador Saz's remarks about 1 million children that only Japan helps. That's 8% of the Afghan population. 1 million may not sound large in American context, but the Afghan context, that's a huge number. That's the number of students that registered in school last year alone. That's a country that came out of war in ashes and today is marching forward into becoming a beacon of hope in the region. We're the only country that is holding some of the region back because of the insecurity. But we're the only country that's also fighting on behalf of others to make sure that what we went through doesn't happen to anyone else. We don't wish war, a life of refugee, and poverty on anyone. In our country, it's the people who are kind enough to provide opportunity for education and give them warm meal is not that many. So we appreciate the ones that do help in those areas. But you'd be surprised that for 40 years, a country that has never produced a single bullet has never run out of them. And they're far more expensive than bread. They're far more expensive than heating a Bukhari in the winter. But that says miles about what kind of world we live in and why it's so important that organizations like Aschiana support the children on the streets. It would have cost the international community tens of millions of dollars, perhaps, in the 1980s to educate the Afghan children in the refugee camps, which they did to a large context, but they couldn't reach everyone. That ended up becoming extremism. It would have cost hundreds of millions of dollars in the 1990s to rebuild Afghanistan. It would have cost a lot less than what it's costing now. That's hundreds of billions of dollars today, and we're still fighting a war. Today, the Afghanistan may be in chaos, and we may have a lot of challenges to go through. But believe me, we have seen how war morphs into more extreme versions. If we don't resolve it in Afghanistan, our present can be your future. And like I said, we don't wish it on anyone, and we do not wish it on our friends. The American people and the Afghan people have a lot in common, and that is we're a people of faith, we work hard, we want the best for our children. We're a family people. There are a lot of commonalities that we perhaps do not think about. Lael and I, in our relationship, we realize that we have more in common with the Americans than we previously thought. And we're thankful for their support over the past 15 years. We're also thankful for their continued support while we go through and during this decade of self-reliance. But more importantly, we're thankful to all of your friends, because it's the personal relationships that make it the best. We meet with people from the military who have served in Afghanistan. We also meet with people who have been in Afghanistan 40 years ago as part of Peace Corps. And the stories they tell us, they all have something in common, and that is the warmth they feel towards the Afghan people and what they felt back when they went to Afghanistan. It's the beauty of that connection. And in this day and age of technology where Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and messages are at the core of our communication, that personal touch is the most important part. And that's what Aschiana provides. Aschiana provides for people to be able to get a human feeling, personal feeling, whether it's feeding them, whether it's giving a child a hug during a hard time, or whether it's reading out aloud to a child who is just beginning to learn. You see, emojis are great, but there is no emoji for empathy. And it's very difficult to contract that. So I thank the Aschiana Foundation for the great work they do, and I also thank to all of you who have been supporting this act, and to the Japanese Embassy for hosting this event today, and to Aschiana for honoring us. We are honored that we know and that we are honored by having people like you who support our country and our children. Thank you.
Impressive. Lael, thank you. And now I'd like to invite Mary Jo Myers, who again is no stranger to you all. She was the past president, Mary Jo Myers.
Well, thanks to each of you for being here tonight, either for your continued support or maybe a recent comfort. We just appreciate all of you. But could there be any better messengers for the importance of keeping Afghanistan and keeping our commitment than the Mohibs? We are most grateful to both of you for your graciousness, your intellect, and just your compassion and your commitment. Thank you. But I'm here to introduce Mr. Michael Waltz, a dear friend of the Mohibs and also a dear friend of Afghanistan. And I will keep my introduction very short because it's much more important to hear a few words from him. He began his career of service as a Green Beret in the Special Forces. He then went on to high-level positions in the DoD, advising on policy in Afghanistan, and then also being senior advisor to Vice President Cheney. And those experiences are in a new book that he has written called Warrior Diplomat. But more importantly, he received, just within the last month, the first Veterans Ambassador Award from the Ambassador Mohib on behalf of the Afghan government for the work that he has done in Afghanistan. And this one really touches my heart. He has started a foundation for families who have lost their loved ones serving in the Afghan military. Mr. Michael Waltz, welcome.
Ambassador Cunningham did a wonderful job of really, I think, capturing the Mohibs and their contributions in education and as an ambassador here representing the Afghan government. But I just wanted to add one more, as the ambassador mentioned, in his work with veterans, and particularly Gold Star families. I just received this morning, by coincidence, a call from a classmate, a friend of mine, Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Trujillo, who is a commander of a Green Beret Special Forces unit in Colorado. And as we were chatting, I mentioned this evening, he said, "Oh my God, please tell the Mohibs what an impact they had on us out in Colorado." And what he was talking about was that his unit just returned from Afghanistan, many of them on their 12th or 13th tour at this point. And a number of his men were involved just 3 months ago in a battle where they were completely surrounded in an all-night-long firefight near Kunduz in Baz-Kandahar. And they ended up losing several Green Berets, over 20 Afghan commandos, but fought quite valiantly and ended up completing their mission. They were just awarded a number of Valor Awards, including several Silver Stars, and the ambassador and Miss Mohib, Lael, traveled out there personally to see the families of the fallen out to Colorado, along with General Nicholson. And Ambassador Colonel Trujillo told me this morning that you were the first Afghan several of those Gold Star families had ever met. They had just lost their husband, their brothers, their fathers, and I cannot think of a better couple to represent Afghanistan to these people, and I just want to personally thank you, and as does Colonel Trujillo, for folks. On a little bit of a difficult note, I'm a little worried about American popular support for our efforts in Afghanistan. I'm a Fox News contributor, and I'm beating on that network as much as I can for Afghanistan not even making the ticker half the time. Let's just be candid. We have double the number of soldiers in Afghanistan right now as we do in Iraq. But on a positive note, outside of the bubble, I can't think of a better couple to represent the future of Afghanistan and a future vision and a positive vision than the Mohibs. And I commend you for not only seeing the Gold Star families, but getting out in the truck stops and the diners and other places outside of the DC bubble, and explaining to people why our futures, America's future, Afghanistan's future, are intertwined. People ask, as I'm sure they ask you, Ambassador, and people ask me all the time, we're 15 years into this war. It's 50% longer than our previous longest war in Vietnam. Where is it all going? What does victory look like? What does the long-term strategy look like? And I try to explain how we need a long-term strategy to undermine this ideology of extremism. It's easy to bomb a tank, very difficult to bomb an idea. And just as it took decades and decades to undermine the idea of communism in partnership with our friends in Japan, in South Korea, in Germany, and in other places, it's going to take just that long to undermine the idea of extremism. And we're going to do that with our partners. And a key portion, and folks, okay, well, what does that strategy look like? To me, steps 1, 2, and 3 are education, education, and education. It is absolutely critical, and it reminds me, and particularly girls' education. And it reminds me of an elder that I became quite good friends with and developed quite a relationship with in eastern Afghanistan at Host by the name of Mullah Ghaforzai. My teeth were brown from having so much chai with this man over the course of a year. And in one of these conversations where I was asking him that question, like, how do we win? What does success look like? And he said, oh, Commander Mike, what you don't know is I have a secret weapon. And I'm sitting there, in the mountains of Afghanistan going, oh, he said, and I will show it to you. And I'm going, oh my God, does he have surface-to-air missiles? What the heck is going on? What is it? He sends one of his orderlies off to get his secret weapon. And I'm kind of waiting, what in the heck is about to go down here, and thinking about how I'm going to report this up to my bosses. And a few minutes later, a beautiful little 9-year-old girl walks in. And he said, Commander Mike, this is my secret weapon. And what he came to explain to me was that he had 6 daughters, and 5 of them at that point had gone off to school in India. And this, his little girl was the last one. And he got quite animated and basically pounded the table that we were sitting at, and he said, when the women of Afghanistan and the women of the Muslim world rise up, the extremists have no chance. So and if we think about it, where girls have a voice, extremists do not. And that's, to me, a critical essence of what our long-term strategy needs to be. So if I leave you with anything tonight, besides how great the Mohibs are, is that we in the United States have to make girls' education a critical part of our national security strategy. We have to take it out of the feel-good kind of humanitarian realm, which is great, but it is a critical part of our strategy over the long term, over the rest of our lifetimes, to undermine and defeat this ideology of extremism. And with that, I'll leave you, and I thank you for your continued support for Afghanistan, for your continued support for education, and particularly what tugs at my heart, which is Afghan girls' education. Thank you so much.
Who's a new addition to our board. She's also an internationally bestseller of many books. So Nadia John, please come.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's truly an honor to be here with our wonderful guests who've come with their generosity, with our esteemed members of the military to whom we are indebted, and to your families to whom we are indebted for your service, to our distinguished ambassadors, and to the ambassador who has hosted us here. Your comments about Sonia Jones
last name made me think of my childhood. My last name is Hashimi, and very often I was mistaken for coming of Japanese descent, and my appearance would obviously baffle people, and the newsletters that came to our home could not be read, but I think that speaks to the long-standing relationship that we obviously have. Tonight's event is truly a pleasure. Last year, I was invited to come and speak a few words at the end of Aschiana's benefit gala, and in the hopes of energizing a few people to sponsor a child and to contribute to the winter drive. And I've been asked to do the same this year, but to do so as a board member. So between last year and this year, having learned about the good work that Aschiana does, I have felt compelled to be a bigger part of this organization, and I'm proud to be here tonight as the newest board member. But as a rookie board member, I guess that's why I've gotten this position of being a person that stands between you and the food. And again, I'm making this plea for you to open your hearts to what Aschiana does. What you've seen in the videos and the stories that you've heard today are real stories. And as you heard, I'm somebody who writes in fiction, so I believe in the power that fictional stories can generate, but there's also so much strength in what we can know is actually happening on the ground in Aschiana. One of the reasons that I was drawn to this organization is because Aschiana is Afghan generated. It comes from the country itself. It comes from their own aspirations. It's not something that we are dictating to them, that this is the way you should do things. And that makes Aschiana something that has a potential beyond anything. This is something that the people want for themselves, and this is something that they will achieve. In writing my stories, I set out, in writing my first novel really, to talk about the many challenges that Afghanistan was facing. And there are no shortage of crises in Afghanistan. We can turn on NPR or open a newspaper and read about another tragedy that's happened. And yet the people that I talk to who read my stories, what they come to me with is a comment that really strikes at my heart, is they say, I have learned so much about these strong characters. And in trying to write about the crises of Afghanistan, what I've actually done is written about, and this was a natural evolution, was written about the strength and the resilience of the people of Afghanistan, which is very much a true story and not fictional in the least. So I hope that you will enjoy this evening, enjoy the company that we are in. We have some amazing people amongst ourselves, and I hope that you will find a place for Aschiana in your generosity, so that the board will be proud of the job that I've done tonight. And so I think we at Aschiana are asking you to contribute and to be part of this effort, not because Afghanistan is desperate and hopeless, but quite the contrary. The children in Afghanistan are the biggest thing that we have our hopes in. They are hopeful, and they have given us good reason to be hopeful because of their indomitable spirit. So thank you. Enjoy your evening.